I used to believe that eating fish was one of the healthiest choices I could make, especially as I got older. After all, we've all heard it, haven't we? Omega 3 fatty acids, good for the heart, good for the brain, lighter than red meat. For years, I followed that advice. I cut back on steak, swapped fried chicken for grilled salmon, even added sardines to my salad. But then something happened that made me pause. A dear friend of mine who is also eating fish almost every day, baked, smoked, salted, you name it, was diagnosed with liver cancer. And that news shook me. So I started digging, not just articles on the surface, but real research, data, health warnings that don't make the front page. What I found surprised me, and frankly, it scared me. Because the truth is, not all fish are created equal. Some, especially the way they're raised or processed today, may do more harm than good. They can carry industrial chemicals, heavy metals, and cancer-causing compounds, substances that build up silently in your body over time, especially in older adults like us. Now, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to share what I've learned the same way I would if we were sitting together over a cup of tea. I'm not a doctor, but I am someone who's been through the confusion and come out with a bit more clarity. So if you've been eating fish thinking it's always a smart choice, like I once did, this might be a conversation worth listening to. Let's walk through 8 types of fish that older adults should think twice about and what safer choices might look like instead. 1. Farmed salmon. When healthy isn't always safe. For most of my life, I believed salmon was one of the healthiest things I could put on my plate. I'd grill it, bake it, sometimes even eat it cold on salad. It was my go-to choice when I wanted something light and good for the heart. But what I didn't realize is that much of the salmon we eat today doesn't come from clean open waters. It comes from crowded underwater pens, where fish are raised in large numbers under industrial farming conditions. This is what we call farmed salmon. Now here's the concern. Farmed salmon are often fed a mix of ground up fish, grains, and other ingredients meant to fatten them up fast. But that feed can contain chemicals that are still lingering in our environment. Chemicals like polychlorinated biphenyls and dioxins. These aren't just hard to pronounce words. They are pollutants that have been linked to increased cancer risk, especially liver and reproductive cancers. And because salmon is a fatty fish, those toxins don't go away when you cook it. They sit deep in the fat and enter your body when you eat them. As someone in their later years, I now understand how much these things matter. Our bodies are not as quick to filter out toxins as they once were, and what we eat every week adds up. Many health experts say adults should limit farmed salmon to once or twice a month. But for years, I was eating it once or twice a week, thinking I was doing something good for myself. If you love salmon like I do, you don't have to give it up. But it's worth being more selective. Look for wild-caught salmon, especially from places like Alaska, where the waters are cleaner and the fish feed naturally. And if you can't find that, consider rotating with other fish that tend to carry fewer pollutants, like trout or cod. This isn't about fear. It's about being aware. When we know more, we do better. And at this age, I've learned that a small shift in what we choose to eat can make a big difference down the road. 2. Cantonese-style salted fish. When tradition comes with a warning. I've always respected traditional foods. They carry stories, culture, and comfort. So when I first tried Cantonese-style salted fish, I appreciated its strong flavor and long history. This dish is made by covering small fish in salt and letting them dry in the open air. It was a smart way to preserve food in the past, but as it turns out, this traditional method can create something we don't want in our bodies, something called nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are a group of chemicals that can form during the salting and drying process, especially in warm, humid conditions. These chemicals are linked to several types of cancer, especially cancers in the upper throat and nose area. In fact, studies have found that children who ate salted fish 3 times a week or more were much more likely to develop certain cancers later in life. For adults, the risk is still there, especially when consumed regularly over many years. Here's the difficult part. Cooking or rinsing the fish doesn't get rid of the nitrosamines. They are formed inside the fish and stay there. That means even a small serving, if eaten often enough, can quietly build up risk over time. As someone who's always valued heritage and taste, I found this hard to accept. But I also know that our bodies change with age. What we could digest and handle in our 30s may not serve us well in our 60s or 70s. If you love this kind of fish, you don't have to say goodbye forever. But consider making it a special occasion food, not an everyday one. You can also look for newer products that say low salt or reduced nitrosamine on the label. Some producers are finding safer ways to preserve flavor without the health risks. At our age, protecting our health doesn't mean giving up all we love. It just means knowing what comes with the meal and choosing carefully out of love for our own well-being. 3. Smoked fish, a flavor that comes with risks. I used to look forward to smoked fish on Sunday mornings. The deep, smoky taste felt rich and satisfying. Whether it was smoked salmon, herring, or trout, it reminded me of family gatherings and quiet breakfasts. But then I began to learn what that smoky flavor often brings with it, and I started to think differently. When fish is smoked, it's exposed to burning wood for hours. That smoke carries tiny particles called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which settle on the surface and soak into the fish. These particles have been linked to cancer when consumed often over long periods. That's not just theory. It's something health researchers have tracked and confirmed. But there's more. Many smoked fish products also contain preservatives like nitrates or nitrites. These are added to help the fish last longer and keep its pinkish color. But when they react with natural proteins in the fish, they can create nitrosamines, the same cancer-linked chemicals found in salted fish. These harmful compounds are not destroyed by cooking or freezing. That means even reheating won't protect you. And if you eat smoked fish 2 or 3 times a week, those chemicals can slowly build up in your system. I'm not saying smoked fish should be banned from your table. I still enjoy it from time to time, but I've made changes. I choose smoked fish that clearly says no added nitrites or comes from companies that test for safety. I eat it less often, and I balance it with fresh or lightly cooked fish instead. As we grow older, our decisions matter more. The foods we once loved can still have a place, but they may need to play a smaller role, and that's okay. It's not about giving things up. It's about making space for what helps us stay strong, clear-minded, and well for the years still ahead. 4. Baltic herring, a small fish with a heavy burden. I used to believe that small fish were always the safer choice. Less fat, fewer toxins, lower on the food chain. That's what I had heard, and it made sense. So when I traveled to Northern Europe some years ago, I felt good about eating Baltic herring. It's small, oily, and full of omega-3 fatty acids. People there eat it pickled, smoked, or fried. I enjoyed it without worry. But I was missing an important part of the picture. The Baltic Sea, where this fish is caught, is one of the most polluted bodies of water in the world. Decades of industrial runoff, sewage, and chemical fertilizer have flowed into it. The result is that even the smallest fish in that sea carry dioxins and polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs for short. These are industrial pollutants that do not go away easily. They sink into the sediment, they enter the plankton, and then move up the food chain straight into fish like herring. Now here's the difficult part. Dioxins and PCBs are stored in fat. That means oily fish like Baltic herring absorb more of them. And when we eat that fish, Those chemicals enter our own body fat. They don't leave quickly. Over the years, they build up. And that buildup is tied to increased risks of liver cancer, skin issues, and problems with hormones and immune function. Pregnant women and children are especially vulnerable, but older adults should be just as cautious. Some government studies found that eating Baltic herring even once or twice a week could exceed safe limits for these toxins. And fish caught near industrial ports or river mouths are often the worst. What makes it more complex is that cooking, freezing, or canning does not remove the chemicals. They are locked into the tissue. So what can we do? We do not need to avoid fish entirely, but we need to choose more wisely. Smaller, younger herring tend to carry fewer pollutants. Fish caught farther from industrial sites are safer. Some agencies even publish local advisories showing which regions and seasons have the cleanest catch. If you like oily fish, you might consider rotating with others, such as wild salmon from clean waters or trout raised on tested farms. We all want to keep our hearts and brains strong, and oily fish can help. But we also need to be mindful of where our fish comes from. I learned that the hard way by trusting a name on a label and not asking where the fish actually lived. These days, I ask, and I feel better for it. 5. European eel, rich in flavor and in pollution. The first time I tried European eel, I was surprised by how rich and buttery it tasted. It was smoked, sliced thin, and served as a delicacy. I remember thinking, now this is something special. And it is, but not always in the way you'd hope. European eel is a strange and fascinating fish. It starts its life in the Sargasso Sea, travels across the Atlantic to Europe, and spends years growing in freshwater rivers before returning to the sea to spawn. It's a journey that few other species make. But during that time, the eel picks up a lot more than nutrients. The rivers and streams across parts of Europe are heavily polluted with industrial chemicals, flame retardants, pesticide residues, sewage, and runoff from farmland. These toxins settle in the mud and sediment, and since eels often burrow or feed near the bottom, they absorb a great deal of them into their fatty tissues. Eels are naturally oily fish, which makes them excellent at trapping and storing pollutants like dioxins, PCBs, and other long-lasting chemicals. Some of these substances are not just harmful, they're banned or restricted in many countries. Yet, they remain in the environment. That means a single serving of European eel, especially if it's a larger, older fish, can expose you to toxin levels that would shock most people. Studies have found that eels from certain European rivers contain several times more pollutants than other fish species caught in the same water. Cooking the eel, whether you bake, smoke, or fry it, does not remove these toxins. They stay in the fat. Trimming visible fat might help a little, but not enough to make it safe if the fish is heavily contaminated. So what should we do? Well, the safest option is to avoid wild European eel, especially if you don't know exactly where it came from. Some farms now raise eel in controlled, clean tanks and test their feed and water for safety. These are better options. Certification labels can help you know whether your eel was responsibly raised or dangerously caught. I no longer eat eel from unknown sources. It's just not worth the risk. That luxurious flavor is tempting, yes, but what it brings with it, chemicals that stay in your body for years, is something I can no longer ignore. 6. Farmed sea bass, a clean taste but a dirty secret. Sea bass is often seen as a safe choice at restaurants. It's lean, mild in flavor, and feels like a healthy, upscale protein. I used to order it whenever I saw it on a menu. It seemed like the kind of fish that wouldn't do any harm. Clean, simple, elegant. But when I began to look deeper into how farmed sea bass is raised, I was startled by what I found. Most sea bass sold in the United States comes from fish farms, especially in the Mediterranean. In these farms, thousands of fish are packed into underwater cages. It's not a natural environment. Disease spreads quickly, and to keep the fish alive, farmers rely heavily on antibiotics and chemical treatments. These drugs don't always break down before the fish reach your plate. That means when we eat farmed sea bass, we may also be ingesting traces of antibiotics, pesticides, and even preservatives that were never meant for our bodies. The feed is another concern. These fish are often given a mix of soy, animal byproducts, and treated fish meal, all designed to speed up growth and maximize profit. Some additives used in these feeds, such as ethoxyquin, have raised red flags for their possible link to liver damage and cancer in animal studies. And there's something else. Farmed sea bass tends to have a higher ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. That might not sound serious, but too much omega-6 can promote inflammation in the body, something that many chronic diseases, including cancer, are linked to. And let's not forget about PCBs and dioxins. Because sea bass are fatty fish and are raised in coastal areas where water pollution is common, they can absorb and store these toxins just like salmon or eel. If you still enjoy sea bass, there are better ways to have it. Look for wild-caught sea bass if you can find it, or farmed sea bass that comes with certification. Some farms do test their water and feed and follow strict safety rules. And remember, eating it once in a while is not the same as making it a weekly habit. I used to think of sea bass as a light, clean protein. Now I see it differently, not because I want to give up good food, but because I want to give myself the best chance to stay strong, stay clear, and live well for years to come. 7. King mackerel, a bold flavor that carries a heavy price. I used to love the rich taste of king mackerel. Grilled with lemon, seasoned with just a little salt and pepper, it was a dish I looked forward to, especially in the summer. I thought I was making a smart choice. After all, fish is good for the heart, right? But as it turns out, king mackerel is one of the most dangerous types of fish we can eat, especially for older adults like us. The main reason is mercury. King mackerel is a large, long-living predator fish. That means it feeds on smaller fish, and over time, it absorbs mercury from everything it eats. The longer it lives, the more mercury it stores in its tissues. And this toxic heavy metal doesn't just pass through the body quickly, it builds up, especially in organs like the brain, liver, and kidneys. Mercury affects the nervous system, and in high enough amounts, it can harm memory, balance, and focus. For someone like me, in my later years, already dealing with the natural changes of aging, the last thing I need is another threat to my mental clarity. Some studies have also suggested that long-term exposure to mercury may increase the risk of certain cancers. Though the science is still evolving, that risk was enough to make me think twice. And mercury isn't the only concern. Like other large fatty fish, king mackerel can also carry PCBs and dioxins, industrial chemicals left in our oceans from years of pollution. These chemicals interfere with hormones, weaken the immune system, and can contribute to chronic diseases, including cancer, when eaten regularly. Pregnant women and children are strongly advised to avoid king mackerel entirely because of the high mercury levels. But I've come to believe that older adults like us should be just as cautious. Our bodies are more vulnerable now. And when we eat this fish week after week, the exposure becomes something serious. You might be thinking, well, how often is too often? So even eating king mackerel once a week could cause mercury to build up in your system over time. That's how powerful it is. So what do we do instead? Thankfully, there are safer options. Smaller fish like sardines, anchovies, or even wild-caught salmon from clean waters carry much lower levels of mercury. These fish still give us the omega-3 fatty acids we need for heart and brain health without the toxic load. It was hard for me to give up king mackerel. It's a bold, satisfying fish. But now, I see it differently. When I think about the risks, not just today, but years from now, I know I'm making the right choice by choosing safer fish more often. After all, food should nourish us, not quietly harm us, and that includes the fish on our plate. 8. Imported Pangasius, a cheap fish that could cost you more than you think. The first time I bought Pangasius, also known as sway or besa, I was surprised by how inexpensive it was. Mild in flavor, easy to cook, and sold in large frozen fillets. It seemed like a smart, budget-friendly choice. It's in many grocery stores and even shows up in school lunches and restaurants. But the more I learned about how this fish is raised and processed, the more concerned I became. Pangasius is mostly farmed in Southeast Asia, especially in the Mekong River region of Vietnam. On the surface, it looks like a clean white fish, but underneath that mild appearance is a troubling story. Many of these farms operate in polluted river systems, water that contains industrial waste, sewage, pesticides, and runoff from nearby farms. Fish raised in this environment naturally absorb whatever is in the water, and that includes heavy metals like arsenic and lead. To keep the fish alive in such poor conditions, farmers often use antibiotics and chemical treatments, some of which are banned in the United States and Europe. These drugs may not be fully removed from the fish before it's processed, frozen, and shipped overseas. That means when you eat Pangasius, you may be consuming residues of drugs and contaminants that were never meant to be in your body. Another issue is the feed. Pangasius are bottom-feeding fish, and on farms, they're typically given a mix of soy, fish waste, and chemical additives designed to boost growth quickly. In some cases, the feed has been found to contain harmful preservatives like malachite green, which has been banned in many countries due to its potential link to cancer. And here's the thing that worries me most. There's very little oversight. The packaging rarely tells you where the fish was raised or how it was tested. That lack of transparency means you're trusting your health to systems you can't see and may not even meet basic safety standards. When I found this out, I stopped buying Pangasius entirely. I realized that what I saved in money, I could pay for later with my health. Instead, I now choose fish with clear labeling, raised in cleaner environments, even if they cost a little more. I see it as an investment, not just in food, but in peace of mind. If you've been buying this fish regularly because it's affordable, I understand. But I encourage you to take a second look. Ask questions. Read the labels. Look for fish that's tested and traceable. You don't have to give up eating fish, but you do deserve to know what's really on your plate. At our age, the choices we make each week can shape our health for years to come. It's never too late to choose better. When you know better, you eat better. If you're still here with me, I want to thank you. I know this wasn't an easy list to listen to. Maybe some of these were fish you've enjoyed for years. Maybe you grew up with them, or maybe they've been part of your weekly routine for as long as you can remember. I understand that. I've been there too. But here's what I've learned. Knowing better doesn't mean we need to live in fear. It means we finally have the power to choose with wisdom. As we get older, we begin to realize that every bite matters just a little more than it used to. Our bodies have carried us through decades of meals, memories, and moments. And now in this chapter of life, we owe it to ourselves to be just a little more careful with what we feed them. Not because we're fragile, but because we still have so much living to do. And we want to do it with energy, with clarity, with joy. That doesn't mean giving up all the foods we love. It doesn't mean throwing out the recipes passed down from family, but it does mean asking better questions. Where did this fish come from? How was it raised? Is it really serving my body or just my habits? If you've eaten some of the fish we talked about today, don't panic. What matters most is not what we did yesterday, but what we choose from now on. And the truth is, every small shift counts. Swapping farmed salmon for wild, cutting back on smoked fish, choosing clarity over convenience. These are not just nutrition tips. They are quiet acts of self-care. You deserve to enjoy your meals and to feel confident about what's on your plate. You've earned that. So let this be a reminder. It's never too late to change course. It's never too late to protect your body, your mind, your future, one meal at a time. And if this message meant something to you, if it made you pause or rethink something you've long believed, I'd be grateful if you let me know. Leave a comment. I read each one. Truly. And maybe, just maybe, you know someone who eats these fish every week. Someone you care about. Share this with them. Not to scare them, but to give them the same gift you now hold, the power to choose better, to live better. Because in the end, the spirit of Elders' insight is simple. A small change today can lead to a stronger tomorrow. And that, my friend, is something worth passing on.